particularly I think you touched upon a good theme. You called it non-executive director fees as opposed to remuneration. And before we get into some of the technicals, I think that is an important distinction. Often the terms are used interchangeably, fee, remuneration, compensation, but essentially for non-executive directors, it needs to be fees. Fees for the time spent on exercising their fiduciary and their governance responsibilities. And that is different to what you would pay executives, what all employees would get, which is more remuneration or compensation, because that's linked to performance. Short answer, yes. Long answer is, it depends. The reason being, non-executive directors receiving equity as part of their fees makes sense because it aligns the non-executive directors' interests with those with broader shareholders. What is important though, and what is nuanced, is how that equity is delivered. At Willis Towers Watson, we're not big proponents of having performance-linked compensation for non-executive directors. So if non-executive directors receive equity, yes, it provides strong alignment, but it should not be performance-based or it should not have further performance conditions. A simple way of saying is, if you wanted to pay a non-executive director 100,000 ringgit, essentially pay 80,000 in cash, $20,000 worth of shares, you just buy at market at that rate and give it to the non-executive directors. It's a good way of building alignment. Short answer, no. And the reason being, it depends on what is the role of a non-executive director. The role of a non-executive director is to represent the interests of all shareholders, majority and minority shareholders, and exercise fiduciary and governance responsibility. I often say this to our clients, the role of a director is twofold. Number one, ensure regulatory conformance, and number two is to encourage performance, not drive performance. That's management's role. You have hired management to run the company. You are the stewards, NEDs are stewards on behalf of the shareholders who are guiding, coaching, mentoring. In that case, they should not receive performance-based fee or performance-based compensation. This is again a topic of heated debate in this part of the world. Short answer again is probably not, because personal attributes are more important in executive roles. In non-executives, the fees should be linked on the role, whether you're a chair, whether you're a deputy chair, which committee you sit on, because it's related to the time, responsibility, and the governance requirements that you need for the role. So whether somebody has 50 years experience or 20 years experience, whether somebody's male or female, whether somebody is a double doctorate or somebody's a high school dropout, that should not impact the fees that you get. What should impact the fees you get is the different roles that you play within the board. So committee responsibilities, in a unitary board structure as we have in Malaysia, where you have a board of directors and then management, the board of directors tends to, the board tends to devolve their responsibilities to different committees. And different committees have different workloads, different experience required, and different risk, both to the company as well as to the individuals. So committee fees end up being a function of a combination of these things. The other aspect we haven't touched about yet is one of reputational risk. And what I mean by that is, no director wants to be on the front page of any newspaper saying that he or she approved a certain payment to an executive when the company went bust. So increasingly we're seeing, particularly in committee fees, a three-tiered approach in committee fees. The highest committee fee is still audit, because that is clearly a key responsibility and a very specialized role. The second highest committee fee is now remuneration, because directors themselves, non-executive directors themselves, sort of have to put in extra time and effort to avoid any perceived excessive pay outcomes, or at least pay outcomes that are not linked to performance. And then the third tier is nominations, risk in non-financial services, technology, and other committees. I don't think they are. I think non-executive directors in this part of the world are not paid enough for the level of responsibility, for the risk, and for the fiduciary duties they discharge. And I say this with a little bit of data. Similar sized companies, if you look at the top 100 companies in developed markets versus in Southeast Asia and Asian markets, you see a huge gap. Even within Southeast Asia, I mean, if you just go across the strait, same size companies, Singapore directors are typically paid double of what they're paid in Malaysia. And I fundamentally think this is a little chicken and egg situation. People say that we need better corporate governance. I say that before you get better corporate governance, we need higher caliber directors. Or we need to make it worthwhile for existing directors to spend more time on their duties. So short answer I think is, again, non-executive directors' fees are not enough, and Malaysian companies, Singapore companies, companies in this part of the world, I think we have opportunity to actually increase those fees commensurate with the contribution we expect from directors. We spoke about non-executive directors and then about executives themselves. So non-executive directors are fees, executives are compensation and remuneration. Now, particularly when it comes to compensation, I think all the research Willis Watson has done seems to suggest that there is a gap between conventional models and what motivates people. And let me explain what I mean by that. The conventional executive compensation models here are built on a very Anglo-Saxon view of risk and reward alignment. What I mean by that, there is a three-pronged compensation framework: fixed pay, annual bonus, and then long-term incentives, which is delivered in equity, which has a 3 or 5 year performance period. And the general Anglo-Saxon view is more pay at risk, the better. Willis Watson, our research actually suggests that what motivates people, what drives people, can be very different to that, particularly in Asia. In Asia, we found two things, and we've interviewed and conducted research of about 2,000 plus directors and executives in this part of the world. Two things come out very strongly. In this part of the world, A, executives discount very significantly for time. So anything that has a long time horizon, people start discounting the value of it. B, executives discount very significantly for anything that's at risk. So most executives in this part of the world would prefer lower reward if it comes with lower risk. Right? So our value add to a lot of our clients, and the question that we pose to business leaders, captains of industry, is let's not just assume the Anglo-Saxon model is the right model. When we're designing compensation programs, let's think about the right balance between risk, reward, and motivation, and people's psychology. And I think that's the missing piece in the current models.